Well, I know I have kind of joked around a little bit about the situation here in Canada with the vaccines and the kind of crazy all over the place orders the governments are doing to say that they're protecting us. And one of the most stringent places in our country is Quebec. They're the first ones who did a curfew saying that, this is going to, this is the thing. This is what's going to stop the spread of the virus for us, according to the government, not the health officials, the government. Well, that decision last night cost a man his life. So, last 2 Saturdays ago, we had the Quebec government issue the first ever curfew in Canada since like a big tragedy that was happening way back 60 some years ago in Quebec. Also, the same province who instigated the curfew back then. And of course, they said this is to stop the spread of the virus. You have to be in your house by 8 o'clock. You could face up to $6,000 fines. You can walk a dog by yourself. You can't walk a dog with your wife or your kid. But you can't walk a cat. You can't walk your husband. You can't go out for a run. You can't do any of that after 8 o'clock at night until 5 o'clock the next morning. And the main health official for the entire province of Quebec, who's been running the COVID task force and everything, said, yeah, there's no scientific evidence that this in any way will help. In fact, we actually think it will probably worsen things because now people have shorter times to do their shopping, shorter times to get things done. More people will be running before 8 o'clock, between 5 o'clock and 8 o'clock now at one time because they have no choice. They don't want a $6,000 fine. So you're actually taking all your populace and you're squeezing them into a tighter timeline where they have to be together. So even the health officials were saying that this may have the exact opposite effect of what you're trying to do. But the Premier of Quebec's reasoning for doing this was saying that this will act like a shock therapy for the populace of Quebec, saying that they have to take this seriously. And it's like a wake-up call. We're going to force you to understand how serious this is. And when I heard him saying this is a wake-up call, it might not do any good whatsoever, but we want you to know just how serious this is. It brought me back to old movies like Spartacus, when the Romans used to string people up along the sides of the road whenever anyone disagreed with what they were saying or anything, as sort of a warning to the populace not to do it. It kind of reminded me of that, and I'm going, this is getting nuts. Well, last night, a couple things have been happening since the curfew started. First off, homeless people are being given tickets. That's right. Homeless people are being given tickets and fines for being out of their house after 8 o'clock. Just let that sink in for a minute. Our homeless people, who, by the way, are on the Quebec government's list of most vulnerable people that we're trying to protect. As you know, many homeless people have addictions or have mental issues greater than the average populace, say, of a building. An apartment building has, might have this, but a homeless shelter would have way more of those issues. Well, besides giving out tickets to homeless people, they've also said, you know what? There was an outbreak like almost a month ago at one of these shelters, and we told them they had to shut down that shelter at night. Well, then where are they supposed to go? Yeah, but there was a case. There was a case of COVID at the shelter. We had to shut it down. Okay, where did you put the homeless that you kicked out of that place? Well, curfew now. So a man on Saturday night was in the homeless shelter, keeping warm. It is winter here in Canada. There's snow everywhere. This is one of the coldest places on earth during the winter. Our capital is one of the coldest capitals in the world, and Montreal is only 2 hours away from us, so it's not that different. Well, at 9:30, they were forced by the government to tell people to leave the shelter. So this man left at 9:30, and at 3 a.m., he was discovered by a friend in a porta potty, just yards away from the very homeless shelter that he was keeping warm in. He froze to death in a porta potty, yards away from salvation. And of course, the mayor came out and, we're very saddened by this tragic loss. With deep condolences to the person's family or anyone who may have known him as friends and colleagues. We are very saddened by this. We were actually in talks with the homeless shelter to start opening up now. We've been in talks with them for a week and a half now about reopening. Well, I'm pretty sure that guy is so happy you were talking, so happy you were holding the odd little 10-minute snippet during a meeting about the homeless shelters situation. Very, very, that just warmed my heart. Oh, well, thank God you were talking about it, right? I mean, that person's death is okay now because you were talking about it. And that's the problem with the way the governments have been handling things here. A lot of it. Told you we're running out of vaccines. There are 2 provinces now in Canada have no vaccines left. Ottawa, the second largest city in Ontario, the largest province in Canada, has never received a single dose of the Moderna vaccine, only Pfizer vaccine, the harder one to try and store. And by the way, we're almost out of that as well. It just seems incompetence. So I did some research and a little bit of looking into it. And I said, well, we've known about this virus since last March. And they've been predicting a second wave since, April or May of last year. Coming fall, we're going to have a second wave. We're going to have a second wave. We're going to have to watch out what we're doing. So what has the, Quebec government done to increase hospitals, increase hospital beds, ICUs, get people, ready for an extra influx of people this year during a pandemic? And they have done absolutely nothing. They have not increased hospitals. They have not increased ICU beds. They have not increased beds at all in any situation. And then they get hit with the pandemic and they blame the populace. Oh, it's because you're getting together. It's because you're going to work. It's because you're trying to, get your groceries at the grocery store too late at night. It's because you're homeless and you shouldn't be out on the street. It's because you walk your dog or you jog. It's your fault. That's why. It's not our incompetence that we didn't prepare for this or get ready for this in any way. It's not our fault. We have to blame you. And I, for one, now am getting tired of the government's blaming people and not taking responsibility for their own incompetence. Number one place to get this COVID and pass away, the most devastating populace, is people in our long-term care homes, our old age homes. Have they done anything to put new ventilation system to increase the old age home capacity? Any of that? Nothing. Haven't done any of that. Haven't done new separation, new ventilation. They haven't done anything in the old age homes. And to this day, it's still the #1 place to catch it, and the most people pass away because of it. Those are the most vulnerable people, not the people running a flower shop who buys flowers for their wives, not somebody going to get their groceries, none of that. They've gotten to a point now where they have limits on how many people can go tobogganing during the day on a hill and with their kids. They have limits on how many people can be jogging together at one time. Instead of all these limits and everything, maybe they should have just prepared to be able to handle the situation better. Just a thought, right? They spend over $13 million a month in just advertising us not to, to stick together. We can get through this. Just in advertising. Well, maybe that $13 million would have done really good to build extra homeless shelter areas in Montreal, so that man would still be here today. But instead, they lock you in your house. They get rid of your job, and it's all for, you guessed it, it's all for your own good. Where have we heard that before? Well, yeah, very sad about today. Sorry about this vlog, but I just had to say it. A person actually died because of the rules they put in place to keep him safe. Well, maybe the rules are wrong. Maybe, in this case, they should admit that they're doing something wrong.